This is Exerscribe Radio, and you're listening to Kusha Karvandi. In today's podcast, I interview strength coach Mike Boyle. Mike Boyle is a world-renowned strength coach who brings a depth and breadth of knowledge that is unmatched in the industry. With 10 years of experience at the professional level and over 25 years at the collegiate level, Mike's work has been featured in the media on HBO, Real Sports, ESPN, as well as in Sports Illustrated and USA Today. In both 2004 and 2005, Men's Journal named Boyle one of the top 100 trainers in the United States. Mike Boyle places great value on continuing education and encourages his staff to always keep learning. Mike is also an international lecturer, author of 2 books and multiple DVDs on strength and conditioning. First, kind of tell me a bit about your background and, what sports did you play growing up and how did you get into strength coaching?
Well, growing up, I was a swimmer and a football player, but my father was a high school physical education teacher, eventually a high school principal. So I kind of grew up going to practice. My father coached high school basketball, coached high school football. So it was one of those situations where I think I always thought I'd be going into something related. Mm-hmm. And football led me to strength and conditioning, trying to get bigger and stronger for football. I was a little bit of an oddball in terms of I probably started lifting weights in my basement 40 years ago.
Wow.
Nice.
In
sometime probably in the early 1970s, I probably started lifting with the old 110-pound York set. I had my little bench down there.
And that's all you need. Nice. Yeah. So how did you get into your current business that you have now?
My current business, it was interesting. I worked at Boston University actually for 30 years while I had my business, and probably right around 1990, I started training players outside and realized that, okay, there's a business in this. From professional hockey players, I kind of moved into kids. Initially, I said, I don't want to train high school kids. I'm training college kids. I'm training pros. But when you're making 25 years college strength coach and you start to realize, wow, I can run this little summer camp and basically double my income, it kind of started to make sense. And first year, I had 10 pro guys, mostly American Hockey League guys, no NHL guys. And a bunch of those guys ended up making the NHL. Next year, I had a bunch of parents calling me for their high school kids saying, I want my son to come in and train.
Nice.
And so I wasn't going to do it. I just kept the list. I was thinking, hey, if I decide to do this, I'll call these people back. And then I started thinking about the economics. Okay, I'll run a pro group and I'll run a high school group. So I'll have 2 groups of 10. And 2 groups of 10 over probably 6 years grew to about 150 kids.
Wow.
It was right about the time when these first performance centers started to open. The acceleration, the high-speed treadmills, those places were starting to open. And people were just starting to think about this idea of opening their own business, a strength coach becoming entrepreneurial and going out and saying, hey, I'm going to rent some space. And I actually knew a guy who had one of these acceleration centers that were going out of business. And so I went to them and said, hey, I'll come here and kind of help you guys rejuvenate your business. Because I know I can, I started thinking I can probably double my summer business easily because I had 150 kids with no marketing at all. I never had a brochure. I never called anybody. It just kept coming by word of mouth. So I thought, okay, we can double that in the summer and hopefully get some kids to train in the fall. And it took off. That was 1997. So.
Wow. And how did you meet your business partner?
His son actually played for us. His name's Bob Hansen, and his son's name was Bob Hansen, who also was a player for us at BU. And another guy named Paul Vincent, who was the kind of local skating guru, had decided he was going to buy one of these acceleration franchises, and they had this skating treadmill, and there was a whole system that for peer acceleration was selling, and he bought into it, and actually didn't end up. I think they were a little bit ahead of their time, really, and the strength and conditioning side of it was not very good. So we kind of revamped it, actually got rid of the whole acceleration program, got rid of the treadmills, and just started to run the program that we run now.
Nice. Tell me about this new certification that you're launching.
Certified Functional Strength Coach is the new certification. It's very interesting. One of the things we've realized over time, I mean, obviously I've been involved in a lot of different ventures, but we've seen the growth of certification. And one of the things we've realized is even though I myself am not a certification person, I don't think that certifications make you better, worse. It doesn't. I don't have any certifications, really. I've never gone to any of these courses. I'll learn, I'll read, I'll watch, but I don't really care if someone says you're certified in blank. But what we realized is that the industry does. Mm-hmm. And people are constantly pursuing certs in all kinds of unusual things, what I would call tool certs. Mm-hmm. So you can get certified in TRX, you can get certified in ropes, you can get certified in sandbags, you can get certified in all kinds of stuff. And people very willingly pay a lot of money for a weekend seminar to walk away with a piece of paper that says, I'm certified in blank. We started to look at it and said, everybody said, why don't you guys have your own certification? You guys should, you've got your own kind of training methodology. You should have your own certification. I was very resistant for a couple of years because I just felt like a lot of times they were just fundraisers, moneymakers. So then we said, all right, what if we did something that was going to be really credible? And where people, because one of the things that we always felt was that we'd have people come, whether they came to our mentorships or we saw them in seminars, and you realize they can't do any of the exercises. And they've got all these certifications, but they can't skip, and they can't go through the agility ladder, and they can't do a one-leg squat. And we started thinking, what if we develop a certification that has an actual practical component that's going to say, yes, this person can do the things that they know on paper. So what we're doing is the initial test, you have to learn the material on your own, take the written test. When you've passed the written test with a score of 80, you can then come to the on-site certification.
Nice.
Go through the workouts. But then at the end, the last 2 hours of the certification will be testing. And we're going to set it up similar to what you do in the FMS in terms of basically you're going to get a 3, a 2, or a 1. And you need to get, so if we're not exactly sure if it's going to be 10 or 8 things that you'll have to do, but we might have 8 or 10 categories, and we might have 80 exercises that are in a database, a video database. And we could ask you, okay, you got to show us this knee dominant exercise, this hip dominant exercise, this agility ladder exercise, this dynamic warm-up exercise. And you've got to be able to demonstrate those, and you'll be scored 1, 2, or 3. 1, you can't do it. 2, you can do it, but it needs work. 3, you do it well. So in that situation, we'll end up with, say, a score. You need, say, a score of 20 to pass if it's 10 things, which basically means you could get a 1, but somewhere there'd have to be a 3 to offset that. So with this idea that we're going to certify that people are not only knowledgeable, but are movement competent. Because I think in our industry, that's what I see as the biggest failing. And that's why I don't like certifications. I'm an ATC. That's the only certification that I have. And that I got in, I think, 1981. But when you became a certified athletic trainer with the National Athletic Trainers Association, we had to do 1,500 hours of work that was signed off on. Mm-hmm. And then we had to go sit for an oral practical exam with 3 examiners who did exactly this, asked you a series of questions. And at that time, because it was an athletic training certification, it was a situation where they might say, okay, evaluate a knee, evaluate a wrist, evaluate a concussion, tape an ankle, all these things. And you had to demonstrate, and if you didn't demonstrate that you were competent, you failed. Even if you passed the written, you'd fail the practical. So that's our idea, is to do something that I think is going to be industry changing in terms of, rather than giving away certificates for money, which is what I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
We're going to guarantee that somebody who, if you're a certified functional strength coach, you are not only knowledgeable, but you're movement competent. You're going to be able to be in a situation where you can show somebody the things that you want them to do.
That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah, that's way better than what's out there right now.
Yes, I think it's absolutely, there's so much of this sit in a classroom, take a test, get a certification thing.
Exactly.
Or even play with a different tool or a different toy for the day and then walk away certified in the toy without ever really demonstrating that you could use it. So that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I always thought it'd be interesting if there was kind of a sales or a business building component to certifications, because none of them really teach the nuances of the client trainer relationship and how to sell. And I think that's one of the most fundamental parts is being able to acquire clients and being able to manage clients and convert clients.
Yeah, and I never even thought about that part because it's funny for us. Our business is so word of mouth driven
Hmm.
that we don't have to do any of that. So I always say our trainees don't realize how lucky they are. We have people walk in. We're in an industrial cul-de-sac, so you have to drive down the street. You would never go by accident. We're the last building on the street, and people walk in there with a checkbook or a credit card, and I want to sign up. I want a trainer.
Wow,
So
that's great.
yeah. So there's very little. It's interesting that you say that because I've never even given that part a moment's thought. I'm
Yeah.
more concerned with what I would call movement incompetent people
Hmm.
that I see in our field, where you go and you watch them at a seminar and you realize, my God, this guy can't skip.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So we're going to at least hopefully start to create a generation of people who we know are movement competent. We know they can not only understand the material, and it's our material. The good thing about it is, the other thing I don't like is with a lot of tests, with like the CSCS, I think the answer is what the book says the answer is.
Exactly.
And you could sit, and some people say, you could write a research paper on why you don't agree with certain questions and why you think it should be a different answer. But the fact of the matter is, for that test, you got to give the answers that are in the book. So all you do is you just study the book.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions on that test that I thought were questionable.
Oh, and some I just thought a lot. I look at and think they're irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly.
You look and think that I don't even know if that matters. So I look at that. Does that matter? Does it make any difference? Should anybody read that chapter? So it'll be interesting. The good thing is the response has been very, very positive. So we'll see.
So, what are your thoughts on some of the other more exotic certifications like Z Health or Resistance Training Specialist or MAT?
I think they're great if that's what somebody wants to do. I just don't know. I think a lot of that stuff becomes cultish, which I don't like. I think the Z Health thing is a little bit cultish, and the MAT thing is a little bit cultish, and I think people want to jump into a particular box, so they go to that class, and then all of a sudden, okay, this is what I do, and this is what I believe in. So I hope we don't become that. That's what my goal is, that we don't become one of those cultish certifications. And I think all that stuff is interesting. I don't know if I've been to some of the MAT classes and I thought it was interesting. I've never taken the Z Health one. I think sometimes they can get a little bit extreme. So, but to me, I think the search for knowledge is a good thing. The search for more letters on your business card, it's not for me. But
Yeah, exactly. What books are you currently reading?
I am reading right now. Where is it? Never Eat Alone. I don't know where it is. Which you would like when you start talking about the business side of things. Keith, I think it's Ferrazzani is the last name. It's actually, and I'm in a hotel in Minnesota, so it's in the other room. But and then I have another one that I'm going to have to start with Why.
Nice, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not read that yet. So when I get myself through Never Eat Alone, and I just finished one. I finished David and Goliath, and I finished Slight Edge. Slight Edge is a really interesting book. Jeff Olson. It's again in that sort of sales and marketing business side, and that's why it's funny. Said I don't think about that stuff. I read about it all the time. And Never Eat Alone is sort of Dale Carnegie updated for the social media age. So it's a very, very good book.
Nice. What's your favorite business resource?
Favorite business resource?
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yeah.
That's a good question. In all reality, if you said my favorite business resource, it's probably Facebook, to be perfectly honest. Because the reach of Facebook, and I might even say, I'm maybe liking Twitter more because I'm realizing the value of Twitter in terms of, because Twitter will post to Facebook, it's quicker, it's faster. So it's I think, and you can direct message people, and people get it faster. I think sometimes with Facebook, people don't tend to check their Facebook, but their tweets, their Twitter updates come right up on their phone quick.
Yeah.
So I found I can get a hold of an athlete who's in Russia by just hitting them up on Twitter. How's it going? And they're in a tournament, or they're doing something in Russia, and 5 minutes later, you've got an answer back. So I think those have become really good business resources. The social media thing, obviously, and you know better than I do, has really changed how we do everything. The ability to be in contact with people via your smartphone and being able to get stuff up. And so that's probably those two. Because again, and the thing, Twitter I like better, I guess, because I have better reach. I think I'm at about 23,000 Twitter followers. So all of a sudden you realize, wow, I can get information to 23,000 people in a second.
Wow.
140 characters or less. Boom, here you go. And that's going to go onto my Facebook page because I've got them linked. That's where you talk about it. You've obviously read Crush It, Crush It was one of my favorite business books. And Gary Vaynerchuk. And just talking about how to link everything so that your blog, like for me, my blog and my Twitter feed and my Facebook are all linked. So if I throw a blog post up, boom, it goes through everything.
That's good.
And what I need to do now is it'd be nice if I could backlink Twitter back to my blog. So if I tweeted something, it went up on my blog. But it's a little more labor intensive. Mm-hmm. I have to go to the blog first if I wanted to hit every channel.
What is your favorite blog besides your own?
My favorite blog besides my own. In all honesty, I don't read that many. I'd have to think about that. I'd have to go back and look through because Eric Cressy's is probably actually the one I read the most, to be honest, because I get his updates. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think who else comes through sort of as an RSS, comes right into my mailbox. He might be the only one that comes right into my mailbox, but I could be wrong. But I don't tend to be, I'm more of a book reader than a blog reader. I don't like to read on my computer, to be honest. I'd much rather, I'm old, so I tend to be a book reader as opposed to reading on the screen.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's hard for me to read on a screen. I kind of like to have the hard copy.
Yeah, and same thing. You can't make notes on the screen. It's just, I'm definitely old fashioned that way.
What do you think's been the main thing that's allowed you to expand your business? How did you go from being a small to a large success?
I think the big thing, and I'm trying to think what book this is from, being an early adopter is probably what's allowed me to expand my business more. And I'm trying to think, there was a book where they talked about that as a big determinant of success. That it wasn't, you didn't have to have ideas, you just had to adopt ideas early. And I can remember listening to Ryan Lee, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago, talking about the internet and making money on the internet and talking about blogging and talking about all these things and thinking, all right, I got to get on the internet. I remember Ryan Lee did a talk at the Perform Better seminar, and he's talking about how, you should have Facebook and you should have Twitter and you should have a blog and you should have this. And I started thinking, okay, I got to go get all that stuff. And having really no idea what I was doing, I was actually at a business seminar, and another woman, I didn't join Twitter, but another woman, Carrie, I can't think of Carrie's last name, but she's the Barefoot Executive. So she teaches people how to run businesses from their home. And she was talking at one of these business conferences, which was probably the most expensive conference I ever went to at that time. I think it was $1,000 for the conference. Mm-hmm. And she said the same thing. You got to get on Twitter. So I was sitting there like this with my computer at the conference, and I just went on and I created a Twitter account. And I went on and I created a blog. And I went on, and even with my website, when I had michaelboyle.biz before strengthcoach.com. Mm-hmm. And same thing, one of the guys that worked with me, who helped me with all my internet stuff, said, forums are really popular. You should have a forum. So we put up a forum, question and answer forum, and it got hugely popular. That's what kind of led us to strengthcoach.com, because I started to realize I was spending too much time on my forum, and I wasn't making any money. We hadn't monetized anything. There was no cost to join. We just kind of ended up, people found my website and started reading my articles and posting questions.
And so I was able to get into the paid website business, and I was able to develop a blog, and I started creating Facebook friends, and I started tweeting. People used to laugh, all the time. I can't believe you tweet. And I looked at him and I said, it's like you driving a covered wagon across the country instead of a car, instead of a plane.
Mm-hmm.
You have to realize what's going on in the world, in the industry, the things that are going to change it. And obviously the internet is not going away anytime soon. So I think when you look at what allowed me to be successful, it was that ability to adopt ideas fast, the ability to not think I had all the answers. Because even from a training perspective, we were always looking for ways to make our training better. I'd go listen to people all the time. I'd be at seminars listening to, at that time when I was a kid, listening to Vern Gambetta and Don Chu and Al Vermeil and all these guys, and thinking about all these ways that we could make our programming better, and then going back and making our programming better. I've never attached myself to things in terms of, I think this is what I believe and I'm never going to change. I look at some people and they're dinosaurs because they don't want to change their philosophy.
Yeah.
And I look at it and think, if I'm wrong, if I go to a seminar and someone can show me either from a practical standpoint or from a science standpoint that what they're doing is better than what I'm doing, I'm going to do what they're doing. I'm not going to, I said, I've never been married to anything except my wife. But no concepts at all where I think, okay, I believe in this and I'm never going to stop believing in this. And that's where we've got ourselves in trouble with this sort of, we stopped back squatting and then we stopped front squatting and then we started doing single leg stuff. And people get mad. But I look at it and think, you don't have to do it. Don't get mad at me. I'm not telling you have to do it. I'm just telling you this is what we do.
Yeah.
And we're having really good success doing it. If you want to have healthy athletes and have them be really successful, maybe you might want to think a little bit about doing blank. And so here we are.
What would you say is the most profitable aspect of your online business?
StrengthCoach.com. The membership website is clearly the most profitable, which is interesting. I had never envisioned it was one of those things that it was just another kind of wild idea. Ryan Lee's sportspecific.com. I was kind of watching it decline, the users, the number of users that he had and the number of posts. I'd go look at the forum because I was a member and I'd go look and think, wow, no one's posted a question in a week. And so I went to him and said, hey, let's partner on this thing and I'll kind of breathe some life back into it for you. And, it ended up where it worked out really well. So that's been something that was excellent.
Okay. And if you could go back and do anything differently from the beginning, what would it be, if anything?
In truth, I don't know if I would do anything differently, to be honest. I've been very, very lucky that a lot of the things that I wanted to do have worked out. I think they're probably initially, actually that's not true. When we first started our business, we had 5 partners. I wouldn't have done that. The guy I'm still partners with, Bob Hansen, is the salt of the earth, the best guy in the world. And I love being partners with him. I wish it had been he and I in 1997. And I think then I was afraid. I was afraid of money. I was afraid. So I went to these guys. They were going out of business. I said, hey, give me 50% of the business, and I'll get the business back on its feet. And I'll make it profitable for you. And we did that. But it ended up still being a headache for me to have all these partners, guys that weren't really involved in the business actively, that were trying to make their investment back. That's probably the one thing that I would have done differently. But as it was, it still worked out really well.
Who would you say your biggest inspiration is?
I guess you'd have to look and say in what area, really. Because I think probably when I look at it, my biggest inspiration probably was my father, because I watched a guy stay at the same high school for, 25 years or whatever it was. The building at my high school is named after my father now, and my father was one of these guys who changed people's lives every day. I still meet people. I meet people in their 60s and 70s who tell me about my father changing their life, doing something for them in high school that got them off the wrong path and onto the right path. So I think that's always been a really big inspiration for me in terms of it really isn't about making money or being successful in the outward sense.
it's about, I guess, the internal success of knowing that you helped a lot of people. So that's probably the biggest, if you're talking inspiration.
Mm-hmm. How do you work? Do you like to wake up early, work late? What does your work schedule look like?
Yeah, I'm an early bird. I'm generally up around 5 o'clock in the morning. And so during the school year, 2 days a week, I have clients at 5:30. So I go in and I train a couple of clients in the morning. And the other days, I'll generally get up between 5 and 5:30 and usually work till about 7 when my wife and kids start getting up and getting ready for school. Then I'll take my kid to school. Then I'll go into the gym. So
nice. Where do you think personal training is headed, and where should trainers be focusing their attention?
That's a good question. Where do I think it's headed? I think it's still headed up, to be honest. I think there's been a big push to this whole semi-private thing and more group training, but I don't think the one-to-one thing is going away, to be perfectly honest. No matter what some of these sort of industry leaders want to say, to me, there's still a lot of room for one-on-one training.
Mm-hmm.
I think but trainers should be focusing on being better trainers. That's what they should be focusing, because most of the people have the cart firmly in front of the horse in terms of they're worried about their blog, and they're worried about how much money they're going to make, and they're worried about their affiliate program. They're worried about all kinds of things except being a good trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, if you're a good trainer, the time you should start worrying about all that other stuff is when you've got a consistent 40 appointments a week. If you're working 40 hours a week, your schedule is full, you're starting to be able to double people up or triple people up to make more money. You're starting to think, should I own my own place? Should I hire another trainer to work with me? That's when maybe now, okay, I got to start thinking about affiliate marketing and blogging and maybe becoming an educator. But now we have all these people who aren't 30 yet who are industry experts. And you think, the reality is you can become an industry expert simply by calling yourself one. Even if you do what you're doing right now, you decide, okay, I'm going to set up this site and I'm going to start doing interviews, and all of a sudden 5 years later people know who you are because of your internet presence. Yeah. I want people to know who I am because of the results that I produce and not necessarily because of my internet presence. So I think that's what people should be focusing in on.
No, that's a good point. What would you consider the main differences between those people who have been successful in this industry and those who have failed?
Personality. That's the major difference. It's amazing how many smart people there are out there who are not making money because they're not personable, because they're not good relationship people. I think, and I talk about this in seminars all the time, I meet the trainer all the time who's, I've got 10 certifications, and then, look at me, I look great, and the other guy at the gym, he's got no certifications, and he's got more clients than me, and I always, say, maybe it's because you're an asshole, and nobody likes you. And that's the problem. Sometimes you get these people who don't really get it, that this is a relationship business. I tell our coaches, trainers all the time, we're in the life-changing business. That's what we do. We're not in the physical fitness business. That's why I say, make sure you close fit. Make sure you're not carrying food around in Tupperware, worrying about when you're going to eat. Make sure you're not worried about when your next workout is. Because if that's why you're in fitness, because you want to look really good and wear clothes that are too tight and eat clean, you're not going to have any clients. Because people don't want to be around you.
Yep.
But you look at that person who has, it's just, I don't know. I just think that, again, there's a lot of people who go into this field because of themselves. They find, I like to work out. I like that it makes me look better. Looking better makes me feel better. I'm going to show other people how to do that. But you have to lose the personal part of that and realize that now it's all about the client. It's not about you. If you get time to work out, great. But if you're still planning your meals and your day and your outfits and all this stuff around being the coolest looking, in best shaped trainer, like I said, look at me. I'm a pretty down average looking person. Probably got a little too much body fat. Not quite enough hair, not a whole lot of muscles. But I get really good results with the people that work with me. And I spend about 15 minutes a day exercising if I'm lucky. And I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about what I eat. So I guess that's the big thing, is realizing that I think about what my clients eat, think about what my clients are doing for workouts. I'm thinking about my clients and my business all of the time.
That's good. I like that. I like that philosophy. That's pretty much all my questions. Is there anything you want to close with?
Um, yeah, I think just the fact that I'm starting to become a big believer in karma. I'm starting to become a big believer in paying things forward, and to just go out and try to help as many people as you possibly can. And a lot of good shit will happen. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people are so worried about money. I look at it and think same thing. I don't think about money. I very rarely think about money. And I'm making money. I'm doing really well from a financial standpoint. And I probably give away more money now than I've ever given away in my life. I almost never say no to somebody. I try to do it locally. You know, if people need money, if somebody's doing a fundraiser, somebody wants whatever it is, we do it. We sponsor it. And I've realized it just pays huge dividends for you, because it continually opens doors when you're kind and when you're generous and when you're concerned. And I think it's very, very easy to be the opposite in business and to be really cynical and really focused on money. I look at it and think, even with training, you know, we set up a scholarship program. We try to make sure kids, if there are kids who can't afford to train, we're going to find a way for them to train. If there are people, you know, I've got clients that I work with who don't have the money to pay me, but I want to see them get better. You know, I know people, whatever, they've got physical problems. Okay, we're going to try to help that person, because that's the kind of stuff that will pay dividends for you down the road. The other thing I want to close on, Inside Out Coaching, tremendous book. And one of the things, Joe Ehrman wrote the book, and he talks about the 20-year window, basically saying that you won't know what you did for 20 years. And I'm at that stage of life now where I kind of, you know, I look back and all of the things that I did when I was younger are coming back to me over and over again, in terms of people you didn't even realize you helped, people whose lives you didn't realize you impacted 20 years ago, suddenly somehow come back into the picture, whether it's with their kids or with somebody else or with a positive recommendation. And so it's really, really good book. Everybody, it's not really about coaching. It's a life book, but I would strongly recommend, in addition to the ones that we talked about, that, and just realizing, be a good person, get good at what you do. The rest of it will take care of itself.
Yeah, I love it. That's my philosophy too. Well, I want to really thank you for your time, and thanks for being on this interview today.
All right. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Talk to you soon. See ya.